Kevin Coleman at DuBois_22.
I'm Jeff Bell at For Whom J Bell Tolls.
And I am Christian Williams at C. Williams NFL, and this is the Devy Royale.
I do this day in and day out, all night long. Yeah. This all I think about. This all I care about. Y'all all I care about. Let's go, man, it's here. We televised, so you know we gotta show out. Yeah. They talking junk, so you know we gotta put them to sleep. Yeah. Let's go, man. Let's go. Don't play. We do this every day. We work too hard, day in and day, like I told y'all. They don't do what we do. They don't do what we do. They never done what we did.
To the races, can they catch it? No, they can't. Touchdown.
Welcome to another episode of the Devy Royale, a member for the Going for Two family. Today on the show, we'll be doing a Devy breakdown on three of the top Big Ten East teams. Unfortunately, that means we're going to have to listen to Ohio State all episode long. So you might as well just start getting drunk now because Jeff is going to be talking about them no matter what the whole episode. And it's a lot of Michigan bashing, which is very hurtful to my soul here. We're going to be picking up a mashup of sports events, our top 5 2023 tight ends, because we love our tight ends on this show, and discussing players that we hated and we loved in college football, all-time favorite college players and guys that we just despised, and we'll be going down there. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Jeff, Christian, how you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic, Kevin. Happy to be here, and certainly excited that we are doing the Big Ten East, one of the very best divisions in college football, and sporting my Ohio State Buckeyes, and we get to talk a little bit about your Michigan Wolverines as well.
Yep. I'm doing pretty well. I think this is the most excited Jeff has been for our show because of the Ohio State and Michigan ties. So I'm excited. It's going to be a good show.
All right, let's go. Before we get into all the teams and everything there, we're going to talk about some news. We had the Elite 11 actually popped on recently, and also the opening, which are two basically draft prospects. So Elite 11 is for quarterbacks, and then you have the opening, which we kind of make it focus on wide receivers. Now, we had some news recently for the Elite 11. Cade Klubnik, he's a Clemson commit. He won. Looks to be, the next heir apparent of DJU. What do we have about this? Because there's some people out there in the Devy community, we won't mention their names, that don't like Cade Klubnik. They don't think he's very good. You got to watch him, Jeff. What is your opinion of Cade?
He's got to put some weight on. He's 6'2", but he's like 185, and so he's a slender guy. Obviously, he's shown he's very accurate at winning the Elite of 11, and especially beating future Buckeye Quinn Ewers, and so he's one of the most touted guys to come along in years. And so Klubnik going out there and winning the Elite 11 certainly says something about his talent and his ability. And he's going to be stuck behind DJ Uiagalelei, and that he's going to wait for a year or two, but certainly he might have the potential and the pipeline, and it speaks to the way that these schools at the top are just recruiting the quarterback position and the wide receiver position, every position really, that these guys are willing to go to these top schools. And kind of it seems like the top 5 pick Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Georgia, and then they wait their turn and they transfer if they need to. And I think we got more of that again.
Yeah, I would say Klubnik was good, but I don't think that's the news here. To be honest, I think the news is that when I was looking through some of the how people are performing lists and whatnot, Quinn Ewers was 4th, 5th, 6th even. And so, Jeff, I wanted to ask you, does that concern you as he is set to potentially? I mean, do you think he comes in and starts as a true freshman after that performance at the Elite 11?
At this point in time right now, I feel like I can't say that just because we haven't seen CJ Stroud and we haven't seen Kyle McCord, and what they do on the fields. If McCord grabs the job and he looks like he's the second coming, he's not going to sit for Ewers. And then maybe that Ryan Day might shuffle that quarterback room a little bit to get some playing time in there, or, maybe the 63-7 wins that they have every week will naturally get some of that playing time. But if one of these guys steps forward, I can't imagine a true freshman coming in and taking the job when you've got an experienced signal caller.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I want to go back to Klubnik real quick. I did a Clemson profile and I talked about him a little bit. I liked what I saw from his tape. Like when I watched him playing competition, he's a dual threat guy too. Like when you watched him, he had over 500 yards rushing last year in 2020, 15 rushing touchdowns. And so I think that kind of is a different dynamic than we're used to Clemson quarterbacks. So I think he's just a different type of quarterback. His size though is kind of, he's going to put on some weight. Like I wish 186 was light for me. Unfortunately it's not, but 186 for him is definitely a little light for him. I like his, he played against 6A competition in Texas, so he's pretty good there. He has that. I think the one thing I remember when I did my breakdown, I loved his ability to throw on the run. Like he does a very good job of having that functional athleticism within the pocket. And when the play does break down, Klubnik is able to get to the outside, and he has a very good arm on the run. So I do like that. But like you said, Ewers is going to be an interesting case because everybody's talked about him being Peyton Manning, but is he really Peyton Manning? Like, is he going to be that guy that would come here? And I think he can be very good, but is he going to be that guy that we talk about expectations being so high? Who is this guy? I'll tell you where he could start. Just come to Michigan. All right, now let's go over to the opening. And again, we're going to talk about, Jeff, I'm going to let you go ahead and take this. You're good. You're better with names. Who are we talking about in this one?
I think it's Tatroya. Maybe I'll go with that. Tatroya McMillan. He's a California wide receiver. He was the MVP for the opening. He's the wide receiver 7 in 24/7 rankings. He's uncommitted right now. He's looking at a handful of Pac-12 schools, the usual candidates: USC, USC, Oregon, Arizona. We were talking about in the chat earlier that Oklahoma was almost a Pac-12 team, but he's uncommitted, and we'll see where he ends up. And certainly, coming out in the opening, winning MVP as wide receiver 7, you have to wonder if maybe some bigger offers might start rolling in there a little bit too.
Yeah, I saw him on the show sheet, and I'll be honest, like I'm a degenerate, but I haven't seen a lot of his tape. Like I didn't watch a lot of his stuff. I saw in the opening, I saw that. I like his frame. He's almost 6'4", 185. Like he's kind of that bigger guy that I like to see there. He has pretty good natural from the tape that I watched and the stuff that I did. He has pretty good natural pass catching ability. Like it looks like he has the ability just to catch the ball, which you don't always see in high school. It's athletes and then they turn into receivers. He looks like a receiver, so that's pretty good there. Christian, what did you see when you watched him?
Kind of the same stuff. I mean, that frame is nice. I think the thing that would make me excited would be to go to that Oregon wide receiver room that has a couple of good freshmen this year and kind of see what they can do. I would assume that maybe Butterfield would take over by the time he got in and got some playing time, and that would be an exciting team. That's, especially with the college football playoff expanding and whatnot, that's a playoff team, and that's a team that should fire on all cylinders on offense. So that'd be intriguing. USC is probably going to get him because it's USC. They do that. So,
USC would be, but like you said with Oregon, they're straight up just Cristobal is killing the recruiting trail. Like he is. I've been looking at the last couple of years with him, and this last year, like he's building something there. There's a reason why I didn't take any of those jobs, because he's building it. And then another thing, we talked about the NIL last week on the episode, that just came out. I think there were those guys with Nike now. Like we're going to be talking about Nike. We're going to be a destination for some of these kids with being able to make money now off their likeness. So that's something to see, because Cristobal's killing it on the recruiting trail. So like you said, like I think he's going to go to Pac-12 somewhere. But maybe not Oklahoma, maybe. All right, now let's go to the transfer. We'll look at that. The transfer portal is going a little crazy here. I did get asked about this kid today, so I'm going to throw it over to Christian real quick. But Dare Rosenthal, he's an LSU left tackle. He's going to Kentucky. What is our opinion of Chris Rodriguez? Because I got asked about him today. I compared him to like having a Darrell Henderson-like role. What do you think, Christian? What do you think? Not just about that, but just him in general.
Rodriguez is impressive, man. We talked about him a little bit last week, I think. So I watched a game or two. I didn't get to dive in as much as I'd want. He kind of screams plotter at the next level. Like I know he's able to break away, but he's got a big frame. I think Darrell Henderson, like that type of role would be suitable for him, but I can also see the NFL love those types of backs. And so I think if he goes out and he leads the nation in yards per carry behind what should still be a good offensive line, I'm intrigued. I don't have him super high in my rankings right now, though. So,
yeah. Now, Jeff, what do you think about this transfer? Does this help him? Does it help out that Kentucky team? What do you think?
I mean, certainly it helps that Kentucky team. Like you guys mentioned, we talked about them last week, and Mark Stoops is doing a really good job of building just a strong program throughout. And it almost reminds me of the old Michigan State programs with Mark D'Antonio, like kind of collecting those mid-tier guys and turning them into players. And so I think maybe this is something that Rosenthal saw there with Kentucky, because they have been turning out NFL talent over the last couple of draft classes. And I think Rodriguez could be one of those guys, maybe the lower end of a committee type back. He's at the NFL level. He's not going to be you're not going to give him 60-70% of the work, but he certainly is a guy that can get in there, chip away, and he does look like an NFL back in that regard.
Okay, no, I think that's fair. I don't see him as being anything like a dynasty asset or Devy asset you have to own. But like I said, he's probably late second round pick ish, like in that area for rookie picks in the Superflex league. That's kind of where I value him at. We have Austin Kendall, former Oklahoma, West Virginia quarterback. He's going to Louisiana Tech now. This guy's moving everywhere. You saw him in 2019. He did have an okay season. Almost 2,000 yards passing, 12 touchdowns. Jeff, does this? I don't think he has Devy concerned. Maybe C2C. Any kind of anything there with that?
I just think it's wild that I think it wasn't he Baker Mayfield's backup at one point. Yeah. This guy has been in college forever, and so I just think it's a interesting, wild story, and I think that we're going to see a lot of that this year.
Hey, I will say this. I always tell the kids, as long as someone else is paying for your tuition, you stay in school as long as you want. Like if someone's paying for it, you stay. If you're paying for it, get the hell out as fast as you can. But hey, Austin, it's like that Van Wilder, right? That movie back in the day. I'm sure Jeff's definitely watched it.
I was in college with Van Wilder. I was living the life.
So be Van Wilder. Austin Kendall, new Van Wilder of the show out there. You're there. Now, this is an interesting one, and I'll throw it over to Christian. Demetrius Robinson, Georgia wide receiver. He's a former number 1 recruit. He transferred to Auburn, and kind of an interesting kind of story with him. What is your opinion of this? I mean, it's probably a pretty good spot. Auburn's got a kind of a wide open wide receiver room.
It's a good spot if he's able to get on the field. I think he was about to be suspended by Georgia, and so I was reading up on this, and it's still unclear whether or not he's going to be deemed eligible for 2021. And so I like the spot in theory, but I'll need to see whether or not he's able to even practice with the team, because it seemed like he was just trying to outrun his lack of eligibility, I guess. So I don't know. We'll see.
He's been there a while too, as we've looked at. He's been around a while too, so it gives me hope. Maybe I can get out of here. All right, now let's. I don't want to waste too much time because Jeff is chomping at the bit here. So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about our teams. We've done the SEC last 2 weeks. Now we're into the Big Ten. My favorite conference for unknown reasons. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with Ohio State. So we're going to break down their team, what they have, what, Devy relevant schedule, everything. So we're going to let the Ohio State master kind of give us a headway here. And why don't you tell us about the schedule and everything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 big home games, and September 11th, second week of the season, they've got Oregon coming in, and that's going to carry playoff ramifications very likely. And then on 10/30, right before Halloween, they have Penn State. And Penn State's one of those games where it feels like if it's the end of September, then Ohio State usually wins. And then when it gets closer to Halloween, then that's when screwy things happen. And so that makes me a little bit nervous. And we'll talk about Penn State a little bit later and them having an experienced quarterback, whereas Ohio State will be breaking in a new quarterback, whether it be CJ Stroud, whether it be Kyle McCord, or even if Jack Miller ends up the quarterback somehow, some way. So that's a game that it does seem like weird things happen in those late October games against Penn State. And I do want to emphasize that every big game this year is at home. And so that's it's really important, I think, for the program.
Of course.
They certainly have, I guess they play the team from Michigan in November. They play Michigan State. I think that one's at home too. So they luck out and having all these games at home. Devy relevant players, everybody. Everybody on this roster is a Devy relevant player. Between CJ Stroud, Kyle McCord, running back's a little bit more iffy. Obviously, we're very excited about Travion Henderson. We hope that he can step forward and take a big role immediately. I do think Master Teague is the type of guy that he might end up sneaking into the back half of the draft, or maybe he's going to be one of those guys that everybody gets excited about as an undrafted free agent, hoping for the potential in the next James Robinson, if we'll be still referencing that name, because I'm not quite sure we're going to have another one in this class. In wide receiver room, we've discussed these wide receivers ad nauseum. We got Garrett Wilson, we got Chris Olave, we've got Smith and Jigma, we've got Julian Fleming, we've got Marvin Harrison Jr., we've got Emeka Buka, and that it's just rolling off, and it's just going to keep going. That the assembly line is rolling. He's what Ryan Day is really building in Columbus is almost an Elite 11 type 7-on-7 type program where they've got fantastic quarterbacks and they've got fantastic wide receivers. They're going to be throwing the ball all over the place, and hopefully Henderson comes forward and rewards everybody in the C2C format, and we'll be chomping at the bit for 2 or 3 years until he gets to the NFL level. And then last guy bearing mention would be Jeremy Ruckert. Whether they're going to use him or not, that's going to be an open question. It's one of those. I think he's very talented and he has the ability, but when you've got these wide receivers, why are you going to do it? Sleepers that I'm looking at on this team, Gee Scott moving to wide receiver, I think that'll be interesting. And I don't know that he even qualifies as a sleeper given his profile and the excitement at tight end as a potential producer for tight end at the NFL level. And then Mayan Williams is a guy that I think that people that look at the star ratings and all that, he was a 3-star, and so they're kind of down on him, but he's really a guy that the coaches pump up every chance they get. He's really transformed his body and turned himself into almost an NFL body that you want to see for being a sophomore in college. And so I think that this year it'll be interesting to see if he steps forward and claims a big share of the workload, and that really wouldn't surprise me the way that coaches talk about him. And then looking at their 2021 outlook, it's natty. Come on. I mean, what are we doing here? No, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the program.
First of all, you can't say just natty. Like that makes me just want them to lose who says natty? Like, what are you? Natty ice. That's what I think of from college back in the day. Like, go ahead, Christian. That just, that upsets me. That's
to your point about Ruckert, it's not going to matter if he's used. He's going to get drafted highly. We saw Tommy Tremble not be used and then be drafted highly because Ruckert's fairly athletic. You might not always see that on film, but like when you throw the highlights on and then you watch him block, he's going to be a very, very highly drafted player. I think you're going to I think Ohio State's going to have the most players drafted in the first 2 days of the draft next year. I know it's normally Alabama, but they are in flux, and I think Ohio State takes that mantle this year. Program is set forever. They run a pro style. They get pro style quarterbacks in there, and Ryan Day is building what I think is the next Bama. I think at some point he's going to break through. This should be the year where they win the national championship, but it'll all come down to the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think they do need to develop, like, hey, can those quarterbacks stay there? I think the Oregon is a good test, but Oregon doesn't have a quarterback. So, like, I don't necessarily think they can win that game at Ohio State without a true quarterback. That'd be a hard test to do. Like, I think the schedule works out pretty good for them. If they don't have those mishaps against teams like they usually do, this team's going back to the playoff, unfortunately. And so that's just going to be how it goes. I do like Mayan Williams. I do think it's funny that Gee Scott moved to tight end. I feel like that's kind of what's going on right now in the fantasy world. People are done with like dynasty stuff. Oh, I'm going to go do Devy. No, I'm just petty. All right, let's move on to Penn State. Christian, what do you got at Penn State?
I've got an interesting team here. Penn State, they actually have a tougher schedule than I thought. When I first opened it up, I forgot that they have that non-conference Auburn game. They are at home against Auburn, and it's already slotted into the primetime game. But I'm a little confused because if you think about where those two programs are, I don't know why that is primetime worthy. Of course, Penn State gets their fair share of good looks in primetime games, but it's going to be an interesting test for them because you don't normally see that tough test early in the year for Big Ten teams. Outside of that, they get Indiana at home. They go to Ohio State. I think that's 2 losses there. They've got Maryland, Michigan, your typical in-conference games, but Michigan State as well. So they don't have the easy path that Ohio State has. They're also not even close to the caliber of team. Devy relevant players. I was a little, there are guys, right? But I'm not sure which ones are actually Devy relevant and which ones are going to be more C2C. You've got Noah Cain returning from injury, presumably 5'10", 208. He was injured for most of the year. I believe he played 3 games, but he was the RB1 prior to that. Kevon Lee took over for him, and he was fairly productive. Bigger back. He's 6 foot, 230. Definitely a guy that I think will keep a role, but they've got quite the jumbled backfield there. And so it'll be interesting to see who kind of steps up and takes over. I think it's going to be Cain again, because I think Cain's probably their best running back at this point. Other guys, we've got Jahan Dotson, we've got Parker Washington, and we've got Theo Johnson are the ones that I think are definites, right? Jahan Dotson, I wrote down here, he's overvalued, but he's a pretty good separator. We were talking before the show. You could put him into a category with De'Ami Brown, with Joshua Downs, kind of those guys that they can stretch the field. I don't think Jahan Dotson has natural hands, and so I am a little concerned with that. But I love De'Ami Brown, so I can see a world where I come around to Jahan Dotson being a good NFL player. Parker Washington, 5'10", 205. I think that's probably their best asset. I know a lot of people have Dotson ranked really, really highly, but I think Washington's good. And he broke out as a true freshman. And so I think he's going to take the next step. Notice I haven't mentioned the quarterback yet. I'll get there in a second. Theo Johnson, I wrote him down. We're going to talk about him quite a bit later, so I don't want to drone on about him. 6'6", 240, athletic. That's pretty much going to be our analysis probably when we come back around to him. But no, we'll talk about him later. Some sleepers, Keziah Holmes. He's probably not going to see the field, but he was a highly touted recruit. Another piece of that backfield that I'm interested to see where they go with it. And then we talked also before the show, Lonnie White Jr. just got drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, but was rated very highly. He was on a lot of Devy lists. I think he's a good football player, and so I'm intrigued to see where he goes. I think he is Devy relevant. It's just we don't know if he's actually going to play football, so I had to put him in the sleepers. Sean Clifford is the driving force behind this team, and I think that's like you're getting behind a Kia, right? And so I don't know what the ceiling of this Penn State team is. They do have a pretty good defense. They lost some key pieces on that defense, but they have one of the best corners in the nation. They have some linebackers still, despite losing Micah Parsons and Odafe Owe. So I think their defense is going to keep them somewhat relevant. I think they lose 3 to 4 games out of the ones I listed, though, and so I think you're looking at a shitty bowl game for Penn State, and that's pretty much what you can expect until they get a quarterback in there that's worth a damn. So I'm interested. Kevin, what do you think of some of these guys on Penn State?
Yeah, I think, first of all, their schedule, after they have their bye week, they get a pretty, little tough stretch. I mean, Illinois is whatever, but Illinois is going to be better now that Lovey's not there. Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers, Michigan State. Those are legit, that's a brutal stretch, especially just in that conference. There's really nothing there. They have 3 away games in that stretch, so that's going to be tough for them. I think it really comes down, like you talked about. Clifford is terrible, and that's what worries me about the wide receivers, because he's not a very good asset. He's not very good, and then you get stuck with those wide receivers. I like Parker Washington probably the best out of that crew. I do like him. He's pretty good. He separates pretty well. I like his size, 205. There's a lot of things about him, but like you said, probably the best asset. I would agree, and I do think Noah Cain's a legit I don't know. I like him. I put him in one of my articles for Fantasy Pros as kind of a sleeper, just because I think people forgot about the injury. Hey, this kid's pretty good. Let's not just throw him out of the bus here. He got injured. There's really nothing he can do about it last year. I'm not a big Kevon Lee guy. I know some guys love Lee, but he's massive, and I don't see him being really how big he is. He should be playing in Maryland. They love their kind of running backs that size, but with his ability, I don't see that necessarily being a big asset for me. I'm kind of staying away from a lot of these guys. Lonnie White's great, but he's probably playing baseball. I don't necessarily like this team as a whole. I think Noah Cain's going to be good, but if I want anybody, it's Parker Washington. Jeff, would you agree? Or you love Penn State and you love their coach, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about him.
Well, I think that I need to take a minute and maybe take a real hard look at whoever put this show sheet together, because I think that we really screwed up here. Because Indiana is probably the second best team in the Big Ten, and I don't know how I blame whoever did the show sheet. Probably is a longtime Big Ten fan and just kind of went on autopilot. I know we had some problems last week about vacation mode, and then probably whoever did the show sheet went on autopilot and looked at the Big Ten East and said, "Well, of course it's going to be Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan." But in reality, Indiana is the second best team in the Big Ten East, and if they were real, and I'd feel terrible that if there were any Indiana football fans out there, you can certainly come and have a conversation with me. I'd love to talk about it, and maybe we can go back. But I know that I'm not going to need to use my time for that. They're probably worried about basketball and whatever else it might be. And, Maryland probably deserves mention too, probably better than Penn State and Michigan. And so looking at those two games, Indiana and Maryland, it's going to be a tall task. I think Penn State really struggled last year and putting everything back together where they were. You mentioned Sean Clifford. It's been a recurring theme that we've looked at several of these teams just kind of going with that proven veteran guy and knowing what they've got. And the reality is of what they got isn't that. And so I think Clifford certainly qualifies as that. So you've got the Ohio State game, you got the Indiana game, probably the Maryland game that's turning into a little bit of a rivalry between those two programs. The Michigan game, whatever that might be. The Auburn game, because for some reason there's these weird transitive properties in college football that even if Auburn they could be 10-2 and Penn State could be 8-4, but if Auburn beats them by a touchdown, then obviously the SEC is certainly much, much superior to the Big Ten. And so that's going to be a big game, I think, for the conference as a whole and for this Penn State program, what they do with the Auburn game. But again, I'm very upset with the person that did the show sheet and didn't include Indiana.
I will say though, Jeff, to that point, I think Penn State probably has the more notable names for Devy. Despite fair. That, like Indiana's a good team because they're good defensively and they have solid trenches, and then they have some guys. But I think we could talk about more players for Penn State. So that's why I didn't even question it. I was like, oh yeah, Penn State's got a ton of guys, right?
I appreciate it. I think the person that did the sheet appreciates saving them that way.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Penix, Stephen Carr, like those guys, Ty Freifogel, we're splitting hairs here. All right, let's get to the real. Hendershot's there. Hendershot's pretty good, but he's got to stop getting DUIs. All right, so I think the one guy though is Theo Johnson. He's that guy. I really think he's the tight end 2 of this class, which we'll mention in a little bit. All right, let's go to the real team that we're going to be talking about tonight. Michigan, my Michigan Wolverines fighting for you guys. The schedule is going to disappoint me at some point. They're playing Washington the second week of the season. If we can't beat Washington, I'm quitting, and Harbaugh should be fired on the spot because Washington's offense is dreadful. But, of course, it will look amazing against us probably because we just don't play defense correctly, and we'll just be running, man coverage against teams that have elite athletes. Northern Illinois, Rutgers, no. Wisconsin, Nebraska's in there. I mean, let's face it. The real test is going to be like the last 4 weeks. You go Indiana, Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. Like, that's a pretty tough stretch. Even Michigan State the week before. So, and Northwestern's in there. Like, we have a tough schedule. Realistically, for me, 8 wins is probably pretty good for us. I know Michigan fans won't like to hear that, but that's probably a fair base of where we're at. I think it really comes down to our guys. So when we talk about Devy relevant players, unfortunately, I can't be like Jeff and just say everyone, but there is a couple guys here. JJ McCarthy, my guy, the savior of Michigan football. That's what everybody's calling him. IMG Academy, 6'3", 190. I like him. I compared him to Matthew Stafford Light. I like his tape. I like where he's at. I like his accuracy, his intangibles. I like what he does outside the pocket. I like his pocket presence. He's actually pretty mature for his age. He went to IMG to play better talent, which he did last year. So I like that from him. Like, there's a lot of things I do like. Will he start? Probably not, because Michigan's dumb is going to start Cade McNamara. And I like Cade McNamara, but he's a game manager. Like, all I see out of him is Trent Dilfer, and it hurts my soul. And we can't have that for Michigan. Like, we just can't. Like, we got to have guys that can actually kind of use his athleticism, do those type of things. I love JJ, though. I know people are going away from Michigan players because of Harbaugh ruining him and Devy especially. And I understand that. 100%. I get it. But there's a couple guys that I really like. So, for example, like JJ is a guy that I don't mind grabbing. I like him as that freshman level quarterback. I think he's inevitably going to start at some point. Tyler Shaw's there from Texas Tech, but there's a reason why Texas Tech got rid of him and didn't want him on the team anymore. Excuse me, not Tyler Shell. I messed that up. Tyler Shell is a guy from Oregon that went there. Texas Tech, transfer there. I don't necessarily like any of those guys. For me, it's JJ. I'm going to take JJ and hopefully get there. The running back that I'm intrigued by is not Donovan Edwards, and I like Donovan Edwards, but it's actually Blake Corum. He's there, and he's actually looks very well. He's got a solid profile. He got a cool video today on Twitter. I was following him. He's got great footwork. Everybody was all excited about it. But Blake Corum, he looks like he could be a solid prospect. 5'8", 200, so he has some weight. He's kind of small. I think he's going to get a lot more run, and for C2C especially. I don't know about Devy asset, but he's not a bad prospect to have. 5-star, Donovan Edwards is there, a 4 or 5-star, depending on how you look at, 5'11", 190 for running backs. I got to see what he is. I have Zach Charbonnet feelings all over my body with guys like that, and I get a little worried about will he be there. Unfortunately, after that, it's pretty dark for my Michigan Wolverines. The guy that I kind of like, I'm going to put him as like a sleeper / relevant maybe. There's a kid named Cornelius Johnson. I like Cornelius Johnson. He had 16 catches, 254 yards, and 3 touchdowns last year. He's got to be a little bit more consistent, but he's got a pretty big frame. I like kind of his size, what he brings to the table. I don't know if there's any Devy relevant Michigan wide receivers. I saw my boy Xavier Worthy, who went to Texas. He looked great on film, and everybody's saying how amazing he is. That's going to hurt my soul watching him just destroy it at Texas, watch him do that. But I like Cornelius Johnson, 6'2", 195. He has a good frame, tough to reroute, accelerates pretty well. But after that, wide receivers are kind of a dead zone. I'm not really touching any wide receivers on that roster. And then, the outlook, like I already kind of talked about with Michigan, I'm a pretty jaded fan. I like to give Jeff crap, but we haven't done well, and we haven't done recruiting well. It'd be nice if Michigan was good, but we're an 8-win team right now, and that's lucky. I think JJ starts in the middle towards the end of the year, and then we can just kind of go from there, and we'll see what he has. But I could see us winning the first 3 games and then getting the Rutgers, winning that game, and then getting our ass kicked by Wisconsin, and then maybe making a quarterback change. That's kind of how I feel how the season's probably going to go. Are there anybody I missed there, Jeff, that you want to kind of rib me on or say that I'm talking too much about certain players?
No, you hit it good. I'd love to see them play J.J. McCarthy. I think you hit exactly right on the schedule that Wisconsin going into Camp Randall. I'm sure that if it's not yet, it'll probably be a night game. And so they lose that game. And then looking at the back half of the schedule, they have a bye week. And so they're the type of team that they could be 5-1. And, maybe they're thinking I don't know what's going to happen here. And then they go into that bye week and then they could lose every game after that. And so I think that's scary for where the program is right now. And it's scary for me as somebody that, I'd love to see Jim Harbaugh really just kind of put things together, maybe win 10, 11 games this year, but nothing would make me happier. And certainly he's got the history with the program, and they're all about the Michigan men up there. And so Jim Harbaugh being able to put it together and really just kind of give them that vote of confidence, to win 11 games or 10 games and then go into that last weekend. And, if they actually are willing to play that game this year, I think that might be another question about if that really does happen again. Certainly, and I think that there's been some past comments that, Brian Day might have something to prove in that game. So hopefully Jim Harbaugh's got everything feeling very good, and they're ready for an extension, ready to bring him in the program before they get their doors blasted off that last game of the season. But I do think that it could turn sideways quickly if they lose that Wisconsin game. They go into that bye, and then all of a sudden, you drop an Indiana game, a Northwestern game, Michigan State losing to the in-state rival, and then things get ugly quick.
Yep, I don't have too much to say about Michigan other than I really like that J.J. McCarthy spin throw. You see that video of him, he does that jump spin throw, and it's like a dime. That's what I want to see on the football field from Michigan. Fun stuff. That's what I want to see. So, unfortunately,
the highlights of my Michigan fandom comes from the off season, not in season. That's kind of where they're at. But I will say, JJ can play. I do believe that he's actually a pretty good quarterback. I hope Michigan doesn't ruin him. But Blake Corum could be that option there. But, we're in for an 8-7 win season, and hopefully Harbaugh gets fired. All right, well, we're going to move on, and we're going to go over our top. We've gone through quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and now we're at tight ends, the 2023 top 5 tight ends. We've had a little bit of a shakeup because Eric Gilbert is reclassified as a wide receiver, even on Fantrax. So those of you out there that play in college fantasy or having that idea, he is a wide receiver. I don't know what he's going to be in NFL. I'm not sure where he's going to be classified as. I don't know. Right now, looking like wide receiver. So we're going to leave him out of this conversation. I think it's pretty cut and dry who our number one is. Jeff, Michael Mayer, Notre Dame, is that your number one?
Yeah, it's got to be Michael Mayer. Certainly my heart's broken that Eric Gilbert has lost that eligibility. But yeah, Michael Mayer being at that Notre Dame program, we've seen Notre Dame produce tight ends consistently, and he's just certainly the next in line. I think he's going to be their primary target. He's going to be a great C2C asset. We're going to be drooling on him, waiting for Devy. I think he's probably the number one tight end in college football right now when it comes to fantasy.
Yep. All the same things. This dude is so freaking athletic when he gets the ball, and it's shocking because he's such a big human. So when he turns and takes the ball upfield and you see what he's able to do with it, it reminds me a bit of just a little bit of Noah Fant in like a TJ Hawkinson body, right? Like he's a big dude, but he has that athleticism. So that's what I like to see.
I thought you were going to say Gronk there for a second, Christian.
I can't do it. They keep tossing Gronk all over the place, and I just can't do it. I can't do it.
No, that's fair. I do think, like, if you're watching on the live show, the video of him going up and getting in 50-50 balls, like that, he's going to do that, but he's also athletic enough. I like the fan call. Like, he's athletic enough to play in a lot of different positions, slot, on the outside. They're going to move him in, and I think he'll produce better at the NFL level, too, because Notre Dame, they do use their tight ends, but with the quarterbacks that they have there, I don't know if they're going to necessarily get them in the right spots. So give me him in that production. I think it's really him, and then there's a tier break, like a legitimate, since Gilbert's gone, like we're not talking about this class anymore as being like, oh my God, this tight end class. We have Theo Johnson as number 2. I know you had mentioned him a ton because of you had Penn State, but what did you see with him?
Another guy that's just very, very athletic. Like he'll take a ball, and he's a yak type of tight end. Those are definitely tight ends that I like. Of course, like with some of these guys, when you watch some of their highlights, you're never going to see them put a nice blocking rep out there. And that's the one question mark with the tight end position, where if a guy's that big of a liability, then you probably won't see the draft capital that you want for elite tight end production at the next level. However, if you guys are watching the live stream, you'll see him. He's going up to get balls, but then he's able to create after the catch. And so those are definitely guys I like. He just outruns or trucks all of the players on the field. Of course, this is high school, so it's really hard to gauge. But I hope he has a bigger role in this Penn State offense. Maybe Lonnie White does go. He plays baseball, and so there's some targets there for him. But yeah, this is an intriguing guy. He might end up, like Mayer, being just a better NFL tight end than he is a college tight end. So,
yeah, Jeff, what do you think about him?
Yeah, we hit Notre Dame on the first tight end, so Penn State's the natural selection for the next tight end. We've just seen both of these programs consistently produce NFL talent at tight end. It's a very crowded room at Penn State, and so hopefully they're able to move forward and play him. But it sounds like stories right now are a little bit iffy on who's really going to get that tight end playing time for that team. And in college production, I just worry that it's really not going to be there on the C2C side, especially not this year. They do have good wide receivers, and Sean Clifford is Sean Clifford. So whether or not there will be actual college production will be concerning. And, you mentioned the blocking, and it's great that we can watch these high school highlights, and these dudes playing up in Canada, and there's some highlights where he's moving before the line of scrimmage, and they're snapping the ball, and he's blowing up a kid half his size, and it's fun to watch, but that's about all we've got to look at right now for blocking. And we saw with Brevin Jordan in this class, where a guy that we really liked his athleticism, we liked his receiving ability, and then he goes in the 5th round. And so then we're kind of really not that excited about him. And I sincerely don't mean to hit on your guy, Kevin, there, to knock him down a peg. I know he was your guy, but I'm just saying that that's the recent example of what we saw that happens with these tight ends that don't have the well-rounded roles.
Yeah, no, that was my guy. I was going to bring him up anyway. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, like, it gives me Brevin Jordan vibe-ish, but I do think his size is a little bigger. Like
Yes,
he has
absolutely.
that kind of that
bigger
size and bigger frame than Jordan had. But yeah, that worries me a little bit. But in terms of like, yeah, I don't see college production with him. I will say, like when I was researching, I was doing this stuff at Penn State. It did say that he went to a lot of elite prospect camps where he actually did pretty well. So like the Canadian thing is real. Like that is a real like low level league. But at least he went to these prospect camps and did that. I don't see college production, but I do see like, hey, of this class, I don't mind taking a shot on him as a Devy tight end. You probably don't have to draft him in your Devy drafts this year. Like I didn't see him really get drafted in my strictly Devy leagues, even the leagues with like 10 rounds. Like he wasn't getting drafted yet, so you could wait on him and see how he produces this year and then draft him next year. C2C, if you expect him level production, though, I don't see it. I don't see it there. But again, like I think we're going to see a lot of shifts in this tight end rankings. Even for our next guy. You know, we put down here Jalen Conyers, I think is how you say it, former Oklahoma kid. He's going to Arizona State now, 6'4", and I think his listed weight was what, 228, 230, 230, somewhere in there. He's a smaller frame guy. I was telling them beforehand, I couldn't really find film because he played quarterback. He was playing quarterback, kind of a hybrid athlete kind of thing. Arizona State, I don't know. We talked about them recently. Herm Edwards, you know, what violations, what's going on there? Like, what did you see from his tape, Christian?
A lot of quarterback play. You know, you see a guy that he's outrunning. Again, it's tough with these kids when you're only looking at high school film because there's a reason they're D1 recruits. Yeah. When they're just able to dominate, no matter who they're playing, they're going to dominate. Unless they go to a prep academy like IMG, but he did not, and so now you have him just absolutely trouncing everyone he plays, and there's not a ton that you can take from it. I will say he looks athletic, and it looks like if he learns the nuance of the tight end position, I would rather bet on that type of athlete than some bum that's super, super skilled. I say bum lightly. I'm sorry, kids. You're all good at football, but you know what I'm saying? Like some guy that's just more skilled than athletic. Jeff, you kind of see the same things with him?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he's not the athlete that like a guy like Jaleel Billingsley is in that smaller tight end frame. And so, you know, he's got to get there. And, you know, he's Oklahoma. You know, we were just hitting these same programs that, you know, Oklahoma's producing NFL tight ends. And he was at Oklahoma. And now he's at Arizona State. And who knows what's really going to happen with Arizona State. And, it's so uncertain. And it's so – we need to see production. And the frustrating thing about the tight end position in college is a lot of times you don't see that production. And so you're kind of just going off of projection. And so I think that when we look at the tight ends that got drafted this year and why we missed on so many of them and there was such a wild swing is, you know, we love to look at the production. We love to punch it in a spreadsheet. We love to see how a guy is going to run. And then the NFL teams get them and they want a tight end that is a tight end. And so, well, I don't know that he is that at the next level right now.
So that's a good point. I want to bring up with Christian. Why? I feel like every other position, like we talk about wide receivers, NFL is going smaller, faster, everything. But the tight end position, where we would think it is about faster, versatile, like those are the things I hit with Brevin. Like, oh my God, he's versatile. They can use him everywhere. The NFL does not like those guys. And do you think it's going to shift at all, or is it just because of the schemes that they run? They just haven't gone to that kind of open scheme that we see in college football, even though some have adapted it. They've kind of stuck with that tight end, or they just don't use tight end at all. Like Kingsbury to like in Arizona kind of reminds me of that. Like they're like, screw it, we don't need a tight end.
Yeah, Kingsbury's such a bad coach that it's tough to take from what he does. Like, that dude sucks. I was actually studying Arizona off topic, but man, that offense is so vanilla. I hate it.
Yeah.
To that point, though, I do think I think you're starting to see it, right? So they're not going to be highly drafted guys because the highly drafted guys are still going to be those big athletic guys that can profile as tight end ones. But you see guys like Brevin Jordan, it was the 5th round, I know, but he still was a drafted player. He's a smaller guy. He is a yak type of guy. I think he'll still hit. Kylan Granson was a former receiver. It's tough because I think in some ways the NFL is moving back to the run schemes where you see 12 personnel and you need a bigger guy to block. In other ways, they're going spread. It's a very back and forth thing, and I think we will see that pendulum swing back to the smaller guys unless we have guys like Michael Mayer every year and multiple Michael Mayers in a class, which I don't think we're ever really going to see that too often. So we'll see. I'm interested to see like what a guy like Conyers could do in a 12 personnel scheme as just like a vertical threat. I think of Trey Burton too. I think that's a good like person to think of at least.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I just worried. That's why that tight end position is so hard. I feel like I thought I was for sure Brevin Jordan tight end too. Like that's why like when I look at these guys, like our next guy is Malik Carr, Michigan State, same kind of prospect. He's a wide receiver, 6'4", 230. I think we've been saying enough about him. These kind of prospects, they're kind of all the same to me. Jeff, did you have anything about Malik Carr that you want to kind of mention before we get to our guy that we're going to just shit on?
No, but I do think that it goes to the offenses that NFLs are running. So, you know, when you're building your fantasy roster, you're really looking for the top 2 targets in an offense. And there's some offenses that can support that third target either through passing volume or through a hybrid role. But absent that, it's really, really hard to get production out of more than 2 passing targets just because there's only so many balls to go around. And the way that route concepts run, you've got 2 guys that are usually playing off of each other. You're not able to stand back there in the NFL and scan the entire field and find the open guy. And so I think that a lot of times you'll see people that will watch the all 22 on the NFL level and they say, this guy on the backside of the field is wide open. Why didn't they throw him to him? It's because he's got 2.5 seconds and the ball's out. And so that play is designed to go the other direction. And so I think that understanding those scheme things and understanding that you're not going to get tight end production out of every single team. And, you know, that's why I think goes to the importance of targeting the elite guys when you're in a draft.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. No, I think that's fair about Malik. The last guy is Darnell Washington, and Georgia tight end, monster of a man, 6'7", 6'8", just a big dude. I put him on my overvalued list for fantasy pros because he's getting drafted way too high in terms of what he is. He's not fluid. I don't see him being a very good route runner. He's not actually that good of a blocker. Like he actually is kind of, I don't want to say he's too big, but it's weird. He's not a very good inline blocker from what I've seen from the tape. Darnell Washington is not someone I'm going to draft at all. Like he's not anybody I want on any of my rosters. I think Brock Bowers, who's a freshman come from Napa, is better than him right now as a tight end. With Eric Gilbert being there, a lot of different assets that they have there. What is your number one takeaway from Darnell Washington, Christian?
You said it. He's not fluid. And if you're going to be that big and you're not going to be a good blocker, now, granted, like I think the reason he is being drafted so high is because he has a unique frame, right? He's 6'8", whatever he's ended up. He'll probably end up being 6'6", let's be honest. 6'6" that can go up and catch the ball, but then are we talking about Mo Alley Cox, right? Like, is that all that this player is? And I don't know. I don't know at this point because he's got a lot of development coming. He's got to develop or he's just going to be another guy. And so I don't love his tape right now. I'd love to see him develop. And if I see a little more route running ability or I see that he's actually working on his blocking, because they're going to run him, they're going to have him blocking all the time. So that's kind of the Georgia scheme that they will put him in line and they will have him chip at least. So I don't like him. I feel bad saying that, like the 5th best tight end I don't like, but I mean, I don't really like the 3rd best tight end in this list either. So Jeff, what do you see with Darnell?
He's less athletic. Brandon Pettigrew was my comp that I talked about before the show. He's just kind of, and I will not stand for the Mo Alley Cox slander for the record. Big things this year from Mo Alley Cox. But no, I agree. It's just kind of, it just doesn't pop. And, you know, we did mention going back to Ohio State, G. Scott moving to tight end, and maybe he works his way right into this list very quickly just because of the athletic profile. But it's just not a lot of guys that really get you very excited at this point in time.
Yeah, I do want to shout out DJ Rogers from TCU. I actually kind of like his tape. But again, he's a smaller tight end. Like, we're kind of talking about the same kind of prospect. But I just think Darnell's getting drafted too high. And I think, like, to the credit, like, I think our list is very, like, I don't want to say we're good at this, but, like, we know, like, hey, this is kind of what the tight end looks like. the position. Darnell, I think, is bumped up in Devy ranks because of the name and the athletic profile and the prospects and the 5-star or 4-star. Like, people still look at Darnell Washington as being should be that guy, and they're not looking at like, hey, we're projecting the future here. That's what we're trying to do. Like, I don't see Darnell being a first, second, third round pick. I really don't. So you're drafting him as that. You're drafting him as very ceiling, like, oh my God, he better break out, or I'm screwed on my dynasty team or my C2C team. Like, that's how I feel. I'll take a shot on Theo Johnson, 5, 6 rounds later, and I'll just take the upside. That's kind of how I look at the Devy stuff. All right, well, hey, we're done with the tight ends. We went to 2023, and we'll be moving on probably to 2024 if we have the time next week. Jeff, why don't you tell us what we're doing next?
So our show, as always, is broken up into 3 different games, and we're playing for a hypothetical poker chips. Whoever gets the most poker chips is declared this show's winner. I am on a 3-game winning streak, and I'm looking to extend that. Although on the first game, Christian won last week, and so he's carrying the first chip in, and he's going to lead us off with our first game.
Yes, and our first game is the Sportsbook Rundown. This is where we go through and we pick games that aren't football because there is no football, but in season we will pick the college football games. I imagine that we will stick to college football, yes, but right now we're going to pick NBA, we're going to pick some soccer, we're going to do some WNBA, All-Star game, not even one that counts, and then some baseball and some golf. So we're going to kick it off with the Phoenix Suns versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Game 4, the Bucks just bounced back in a big way and took game 3. So they are down 2-1, but have the home court advantage. Kevin, who are you picking in this game?
Yeah, give me the Suns. I think they bounce back. I think that, Giannis has his things there, but I think the Suns bounce back and win this game.
Okay.
I'll take the Suns. Team of Destiny.
Oh man, I wanted to take the Suns, but now I will just take the Bucks. And Giannis, that dude is going crazy. He's putting up Michael Jordan, LeBron James, pretty much just those 2 numbers right now. So I'll take the Bucks. Why not? Just be different.
For the record,
right.
That's why you won last week, because I just took the Bucks. You have the Suns.
Yep, exactly. All right, the CONCACAF Gold Cup, I believe, right? Is that CONCACAF?
Sure, yeah.
Trinidad versus El Salvador. Who we picking?
El Salvador.
Yeah.
Trinidad. I'll take Trinidad. Didn't Trinidad almost beat us one time, or they did beat us? I don't know. We suck at soccer.
Everybody's beat America. Maybe Giannis isn't even American. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Maybe we just took him and put him.
I am gonna take Trinidad for this one. All right. Next game, because I have no idea if Trinidad's good, so I just want to skate right by that. WNBA All-Star game is, I think, Thursday or Friday. And so we're going to pick Team USA or Team WNBA. I don't know the difference. What if is it like legitimately Team USA going to the Olympics, that Team USA playing against WNBA All-Stars that didn't make Team USA? How does this work? Okay.
I think so.
This seems easy then. Okay. Well, who's your pick, Kevin?
I'm going to pick Team USA if that's the qualifications, but I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing. I'm educated guess.
I'll do the same. Under the same qualifications. Even though, what happened with Team USA men's? I don't know. They lost to it wasn't like Nigeria that lost to
Nigeria. Well, I can tell you what happened. Yeah, they were looking for NBA calls and they weren't getting them. I'm going to pick Team USA though here, because if that really is the qualification, Team WNBA is going to get trounced.
I'm going to tell you right now, hold on. Kevin Durant, you're an enemy of this show. You are killing our team right now. Like, Kobe wouldn't let us go down 2-0 against Australia or Nigeria. I just want to point that out.
We lost to Australia too? Jeez.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Get it together. Right. Kevin Durant, if you're watching, get it together.
Yeah, seriously.
His burner's probably watching.
Yeah, seriously. All right, Red Sox at Yankees Friday when MLB comes back. Kevin.
I don't know anything really about the MLB right now. I'm going to go the Red Sox, and I heard the Yankees are pretty bad, so I'm just going to go Red Sox.
Yep.
Okay. I know nothing, and I'll go with the Yankees, I guess. Shout out G-Man-J. You better be watching, Jay.
I'm going to go with the Red Sox because they're actually pretty good. Yankees are kind of in a hole. All right, British Open this week. We're going to pick best finish from Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, or Jordan Spieth. Kevin, who are you picking out of that group?
Oh, I'll get to go first. I'm picking Koepka.
Okay.
I'll take Rory.
Ooh, that's tough.
Rory, and I will take Spieth. I think it's time. It's time for Jordan Spieth to do something here. All right, that'll do it for the Sportsbook Rundown. I'm hoping to win again, but chances are Jeff is going to continue his 3-game win streak by the end of today. So,
all right, let's roll over to Prospect Poker. The rules of the game are pretty simple. We're going to toss 3 cards in the river. We're going to play poker. And while we do that, we're going to review our favorite and least favorite college football players of all time. There is a double dip on this one because I couldn't think of anybody else, and he is my favorite too. So, Jeff, why don't you tell us what's on the board, and then Christian can tell us who his favorite college player is.
Yeah, leading off, we've got a 9 of hearts, we've got a 2 of spades, and we've got a 7 of clubs. And lead us off, Christian.
My favorite college football player of all time is Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush, his Saints jersey was actually my second owned jersey ever when I was a kid. I was a Browns fan, but Reggie Bush at USC kind of made me fall in love with football. That team was fun in general. He is one of the more dominant players I feel like I've ever watched. And even if he wasn't dominant, he was just so fun to watch. And so he is my favorite. Jeff, please turn a good card for me. I would love one. Okay.
Ooh, well, I mean, you're pairing up there. All right. God, you guys are going to make me feel so old because Reggie Bush he left college when I left college. And so these guys are my college guys. So my favorite player of all time is going to be Buckeye safety Will Allen. And so people of your age don't understand Will Allen at Ohio State. Will Allen made every big play that there ever was to be made. He made a game-winning interception, 100-yard return against Phillip Rivers against NC State. He, unfortunately for Willis McGahee, but he bounced back. He knocked Willis McGahee out of the national championship game. He made a game-clinching interception against Michigan. He made a game-clinching interception against Cincinnati. If you needed a play to be made, Will Allen made the play. And so he goes down as my all-time favorite college football player. And I've got a 3 of spades. I got nothing.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so I'll be quicker because mine's Reggie Bush as well. I mean, even though I'm a Michigan fan, Reggie was someone that, because I lived in California, I watched him during his heyday, kind of when I was going to high school and seeing all that, everything that he did. And, the game I can never forget is the Fresno State game. Where he had 294 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He had 68 yards passing. I mean, he absolutely dominated that game. Reggie's the most fun player I've ever watched in college football. I still don't know why he threw it back, though, and pitched it back in the national championship game against Texas. I'll never understand that. And he deserves his Heisman. Give him his damn Heisman. It's ridiculous that he doesn't have his Heisman. All you old crotchety bastards in the Hall of Fame or the Heisman college football that won't give him his Heisman, give him his Heisman back.
Yep.
All right, Kevin's flip. A 6 of clubs, not much of anything.
Wow, nothing.
This is good. This is good news. All right, my least favorite. I'm sorry, Kevin. I had to go with Shea Patterson. The reason Shea Patterson is my least favorite player of all time is because he had tools, right? He had tools. He was supposed to be the next great Michigan quarterback. He comes in and he's one of the worst that I've watched. Just awful decision making. Just a bad quarterback, and I hated hearing that kid's name because I knew it. Even when he transferred, I was like, okay, maybe he'll be something. Nope, unfortunately not. He was not fun to watch, and he had too much hype, and then it went away, rightfully so. So he's my least favorite. Sorry, Kevin.
6 of hearts. Okay, so my least favorite, and actually, this isn't a knock on Michigan. This is actually praising Michigan. My least favorite is Charles Woodson. So Charles Woodson, I saw him play in high school. He's an Ohio guy. He went to Michigan during the 90s. As an Ohio State fan, Michigan ended every single year, and Charles Woodson was the epitome of that, taking our best players out of Ohio, him going up there, winning a Heisman, winning a national championship. So everything just, fell wrong for this Ohio boy growing up and seeing this guy that I had watched in high school going and playing for that team up north.
Okay, sweet.
Nothing.
All right, I need to get a nice little pair going on right now. All right, so my guy is this guy, Jimmy Clausen. Jimmy Clausen from Notre Dame. I was telling Jeff pre-show, like even though Michigan's getting shit on this whole show, as you can hear and you've been told. The one thing I actually hate Notre Dame more than any other school. I mean, I hate Ohio State too, but Notre Dame. Jimmy Clausen's face, Charlie Weiss's fat ass. Like I don't know about Notre Dame. I cannot stand them, but I also just. Jimmy Clausen is supposed to be the chosen guy, and he's supposed to come and do all this stuff. And he actually didn't have a bad junior year when he came out, but he just rubbed me the wrong way. Kind of his attitude, how he was supposed to be this chosen quarterback, he's supposed to lead Notre Dame to glory, and I just that kid I could not stand.
All right.
That's fair.
Oh, an ace of clubs. Christian wins
With pair twos.
with a pair.
Yeah,
of twos.
that's on brand, I feel like. So so do I get my 30 seconds of FaceTime then?
Yeah, I think you get your 30 seconds of FaceTime.
Or do you want to
ahead.
go play some blackjack?
Dude.
We're okay. I think we're okay on this one. We can just roll and you can. What is going on? Let's hear your 30-second FaceTime.
I'm actually going to take it in a different direction because what I did this weekend is I went to see Black Widow, and Black Widow was an outstanding Marvel movie. I was shocked to see them. I turned to my girlfriend Nikki and I said, I cannot believe I liked that movie as much as I did. I highly recommend going to a theater to see it so that I can always go to theaters because that's one of my favorite things to do on the weekends is go to theaters, and I don't want to always just stream movies from a streaming service. So get back to the theaters, go see Black Widow because it's awesome. And I figured that would be a nice little positive 30-second FaceTime because I feel like last time I was kind of negative. So we have to pick from our thing, though. So I'll wrap it up.
Well, you don't because you
I
won.
Is this you or me, Kevin?
This is me. That's fine.
The Bucks.
The Bucks, of course.
And then I've got this is fun. I've got the Suns.
The Suns. All right. That's on brand for us.
Absolutely. So next week, I'm not going to mess it up this time, I promise. Next week on July 20th, we will be back again on 9:30 Eastern. Be sure to catch us on the Going for Two family of pods. Until then,
I'm Kevin Coleman, @theboys_22.
I'm Jeff Ballard, for whom J Bell tolls.
And I am Christian Williams at C Williams NFL, and this is the Devy Royale.